I won't be going to Juilliard, but neither will 5 million other people, right? So I'm upstairs, and it's Sunday, and I don't really have any makeup on, which is okay, but maybe not, because this is a high definition camera, so I guess today I will vlog about Chicago. The rest of the schools I'll probably hear about mid to late March, so I got some time. Ithaca said that I did a really great job. I impressed the lady a lot after she looked at my resume and saw that most of it was backstage. Actually, basically all of it was backstage work. But she said that she was like, "You're really good." I was like, "Thank you." And it was my first audition, so that was a good way to start it out. I mean, everyone keeps asking me about the experience, but it's just auditions where you go in and you do some monologues and you walk out. I want to say that maybe you learned a little bit about auditioning, but you really didn't. Because you go in and I'm all prepared to like slate and give interviews about the character that I'm doing from the monologues. Had like 8 monologues prepared, but I only really used 3 of them. So I think that's where there's not really much said about these auditions, about how low key they are, I guess you'd say, that you feel like it's a really big deal, but in all honesty it's really not, because in this business, if you're gonna go audition, auditions can't be a big deal, because chances are they're gonna say no. So if you let it be a big deal and you go in and you're all freaked out about it, then yeah, it's going to be a big deal and it's going to hurt a million times worse when they tell you that they're not considering you for that part or whatever. I'm just going to give you some tips, okay? Because I went there and I decided that I want to make a documentary about the Unifieds, follow some kids around, them all preparing and them going and doing it. Some things I learned maybe, and some tips. Actors are really annoying. It really reminded me of the first day of camp, where everyone was sitting there and they're all like, "Oh, what shows have you done? Oh my gosh, I did that show, but I was this part, the big part, you know, and I had the big part in this." And everyone's like, "Oh, I had the big part in that." I don't really care, okay? But all the auditions, I didn't have to go in and slate anything. Well, I mean, you do have to slate, I guess, but this is how it goes. You go in, they're like, "Hello, how are you?" Like, "Oh, I'm great. What is your name?" And you tell them your name and they write it down. Maybe they take your headshot, maybe they don't. Maybe they get your headshot online already, maybe they didn't. Maybe the lady outside takes your headshot. It all depends. Just have a bunch of headshots. I didn't really use that many, but it's good that I have them now, I guess. So they take your headshot and then they ask, Ithaca, you had to write down the pieces that you were doing. But then they asked me anyway when I got in there. So basically they're going to ask you for your name and then they're going to say, "Okay, what are the pieces that you're doing?" And you say them kind of slowly so they can write them down. And then you begin and you just do them. And then you finish. And some schools say thank you and you leave. And then other schools basically ask you personal questions about yourself. North Carolina, like, you go in and you do it, and then they sit you down at the table and they talk to you, which was fun because it was Carl and Robert and this other guy, Bob, I want to say was his name, who's the other assistant dean who we didn't meet at summer session. Got my monologues, and then I made a chart, which I recommend. Make a chart of the schools that you're going to, that you applied for, what they're requiring you for the audition to do, and then what you're going to do, so that way it's like visual and you see it and you know. And I made a chart of the monologues I had, but most of them, North Carolina wanted the most, which was 3 monologues, a classical, and then 2 contrasting contemporaries. So I used my classical Shakespeare piece. I used my proof monologue, and I used my Elaine one from the Red Hot Lovers. It was nice that I got all those monologues because then my acting teacher could see like which ones were my strongest, but those are the 3 monologues that I used the whole time. So I have all these extra monologues floating around in there that I'm never gonna, well, I'm not gonna say I'm never gonna touch them, but I didn't touch right then. I guess try to find out what these schools want before you go and find all of these monologues. It's good to have extra in case they ask you for extra, but none of the schools did. So you never know. Have a couple extra, but don't go overboard. I feel like there was another thing. I don't think so. So, now the Grammys just started. Oh gosh. I'm gonna unmute this for a second. We're gonna watch the Grammys together for a few seconds. Oh, this is terrible quality on the camera. What is this? How the hell does this go with the song? Okay, you know what? We're muting this again. And then, oh, she's clowns on stage now. Oh, she finished performing and now she looks so happy.